Welcome to episode 644 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and Barcelona are moving on to the final of the Spanish Super Cup. And I know it's just the Spanish Super Cup, but hey, you know as much as I do for the last few seasons, any trophy is a trophy, even if it's happening all the way in Saudi Arabia, even if it isn't one of the big trophies in Spain or in European football, whatever it is, hey, there is definitely an event taking place that Barcelona can win a trophy after winning 2 games in. And hey, they've been to the final a few times in recent seasons. They won it in just 2023, having been close to the top of the mountain and not getting over it. So we'll see what they can do on Sunday. But as far as today goes, they took care of business. A really good comprehensive win, 2-0 against Athletic Club, and a lot of good things to talk about. A few little bad notes, maybe 1.5 of these headlines isn't so great, but generally, I come away in a really positive, really good mood. I would be in an even better mood if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel, of course, like the video, leave a comment. I appreciated so much all the engagement that everybody gave me after I asked for it last time. So, hey, if you can make a habit of it, that would be awesome. If you're listening on the podcast apps, following along on any of the apps you're listening to, or giving me a 5-star rating, that's also pretty cool. As low as $3 on Patreon, you can find these shows without the ads, finding something on the merch store for yourself, including this Ola Koulé shirt. That's also pretty great. So without further ado, though, this is what you came here for. The 5 headlines from Barcelona's 2-0 win over Athletic Club. Headline 1 is start off on the right foot, Gavi's. So yeah, a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, foreshadowing the goal that's coming. But I thought in general, Barcelona started off this game on the right foot, had some early attacks and looked like the better side who were ready to play in this contest. Lamine Yamal cuts in, shot blocked within the first 5 minutes. Same thing, Koundé crossed in Rafinha in the first 5 minutes. Would have been special, but he skied it over. And then by the 10th minute, Barcelona still on the front foot. A free kick by Rafinha on Unai Simon's goal, forcing at least a save, making him think about it. 17th minute, this all winds up. I'm jumping right to the goal here because I thought Barcelona, as I said, was on the front foot. They started with a lot of energy, so we are jumping right ahead to this first goal because I think it wound up being a goal that Barcelona deserved. And I know I always say that about deserving and whatever you want to talk about, that's not a real thing in football because it does come down to luck as much as it is deserving and playing well. But Barcelona on the front foot. I thought they deserved this goal. Rafinha wins possession. Those are the little things that mean you deserve a goal. He wins possession, puts it to Pedri, goes out to Balde, and then the cross is slightly behind Gavi, but there is tons of class on this finish from Gavi. He just moves his boot to redirect the ball into the goal. Again, so much technique for all the ball winning, all the aggression, all the things that Gavi does that we call intangibles. He's also a really talented, skilled player, and a goal like this reminds you of the technique that Gavi has. 20th minute is really the first moment I have a negative note in my notes. First bad giveaway by Barca, but Koundé cuts out the cross. Koundé, I'll repeat his name in these little asides throughout this 5 headlines. He just had a good, solid, all-around day. This is the first moment in the 20th minute where he saves Barca's bacon. And then 23rd minute, Barca continue to just be really, really good, especially on the press here. And at this point, it's time, not with a goal, but it's time with a press to go to our tactics board. So as always, for those listening, I'm going to try to be, as I am a professional play-by-play broadcaster, I'm going to try to be as descriptive as possible. And for those watching on YouTube, well, yeah, I'm going to try to make your job easy here with the tactics board. So I got a question on this watch-along on Big Up. Somebody asked, what are the best positions for Pedri and Gavi? And does this system, Hansi Flick, or at least this lineup, get the best out of them? And I think you are seeing that even for the future, Gavi, Pedri, and Caicedo, this makes a ton of sense because in build-up, you can have Caicedo basically as your single pivot, and then Pedri and Gavi, both of which who are very comfortable coming back as your double pivot. It's always just balanced. This trio has so much balance because you have basically 2.5 ball winners. I wouldn't say that Pedri is a natural ball winner, but he also cuts out passing lanes in the same way that Andres Iniesta, and yes, I know I'm going with that comparison, it's cheap here, but I'm doing it in a defensive way, not even with the ball retention, which we'll talk about later. But Pedri is so smart in those passing lanes, so he's not necessarily a natural ball winner, but very much like Xavi and Iniesta were. You don't necessarily need to be if you're going to press as a unit and you're going to close down space. So Pedri, I say he's a half a ball winner because he closes down those passing lanes so well. And then Gavi does both. He cuts out passing lanes really, really well, and he also wins the ball at a high level. And then Caicedo, playing as that single pivot in the press, he does cut out those passing lanes really well as well, sure, but he's also just a natural ball winner. But then on the press, this is where you really see how this trio works well together. So there was a moment there around the 23rd minute where the press was working so well. And Lewandowski is kind of as Xavi had originally said, you do want to have two forward. And that being a number 9, and now Hansi Flick's system, I think, supports the way that Xavi wanted to press even better than Xavi's system does. Because the number 10 being Gavi in that press, you have Gavi basically being the farthest forward here. Then you have Lamine Yamal, I should say, and Rafinha there out on the left wing. They're on the wings, and they're marking both of the outside backs against a system that was playing a 4-2-3-1. So you're taking your 4-2-3-1 and countering their 4-2-3-1. And then Pedri a little bit behind Gavi, and then Castro again, basically playing as a single pivot. But you basically do have, and I say basically, but this is true, you see not very often in offensive sets, but defensively on a press, you've got a 10, you've got an 8, and you've got a 6. And that is how Barcelona were setting up. And then, of course, the back line is also playing a high line, and Castro then protecting that back line, where if Cubarsí or Nico Martinez are cut to the outside or they need to recover, then Castro is in a position to also, in transition, cover for them as well. And so to have all of that working together, this press is what I like to call, and what experts call, a proper rest defense. Barcelona's rest defense against Athletic Club in the first about 25 minutes was really, really positive. And it started with their press. It started with their energy. And Gavi and Pedri and Castro, I cannot say enough good things about just how well they set the tempo in the first 25 minutes of this game. And then let me end this little section here just by telling you that Pedri had a moment of ball retention in around the 25th minute that made me shed just tears of joy. His ball retention is some of the best that I've ever seen at the club. I mean, we are talking about Xavi. We are talking about Iniesta. Those are the kind of levels. And these are just these moments and these highlights that I don't want them to be forgotten. And I don't want to take for granted just how special this kid is with the ball at his feet. Headline 2 is lacking patience. We're going to have to be a little bit disappointing here for this second headline, because I thought of right around the 25th minute, the last 25 plus minutes for Barcelona in that first half were not great. And Athletic Club, if they had scored a goal or two, would not have been that surprising. Szczesny getting the start of Iñaki Peña because Iñaki Peña was reportedly late to a training session. And as much as reportedly he had a good reason, whatever that reason was, Hansi Flick said, hey, I can't make exceptions. So Szczesny getting back-to-back starts here. And Szczesny, hey, for a guy that's supposedly smoking a lot of cigarettes and has not really been playing at the highest level after retirement, he had a game that gave us both heart attacks, but could calm us down a little bit too, because it seemed like he was always in control, as scary as some of those moments were. Every time he came off his line, and again, there were a few of those where he came off his line, came out of his box. I thought he was playing with fire, but hey, if you get that clean sheet in back-to-back games for 180 minutes, I guess you can't really complain. But in total, I think he was forced into those situations because the team as a whole were getting very sloppy throughout that first half. 35th minute, this is the first time that Koundé gets beaten on the wing. Maybe the first time he was beaten on the dribble all match. Szczesny with a quality save here, having to go down to the ground. This was, I think, his best save of the game as well. Barca, though, I think the bigger total problem started with the front three, and then we work our way backwards. They, I think, as a whole, were just lacking patience. Those diagonal balls weren't getting off, which is interesting to think of it that way, that the one time that you probably should have proper Route 1 football was on those long diagonals, and Cubarsí had 2 or 3 in this game where they were just chef's kiss, and Nico Martinez had 2 in this game. They were also, again, chef's kiss. But the diagonal balls weren't really getting off, because I think the impatience for Barcelona were coming much more in the same thirds of the field, which, again, it doesn't really matter there, but it doesn't also unbalance your opponent at all. It allowed Athletic Club to kind of stay in their shape in the press that they had, and their press did improve as that first half went on. Again, where I think that they were lacking patience is that first phase of play and getting out of their own even third or half of the field. So Athletic Club were consistently turning them over. And I think that happens for 3 reasons, and I think I put one of these reasons on each of the 3 forwards. Now, Koundé was the activation for Athletic Club. They were overloading his side of the field, and they were pressing him. And they were kind of taking advantage of the fact that Lamine Yamal was not totally fit for this game. Offensively, he looked fit, and I'm going to give him his flowers and his plaudits for the second half, because offensively, he looked like Lamine Yamal. There were moments on the ball where, of course, he has magic. He was forcing a second defender to come to him in the attack, and he was just being Lamine Yamal offensive with the ball at his feet. And I think especially for any player, but particularly for a teenager, when the ball comes to your feet, that gives you life, that gives you fitness, that gives you energy and all those things. It's a lot harder and it's much more mental and physical to defend and have to put in a shift on that end. And that's where I think you saw some of Lamine Yamal's fitness lacking, even in that first half, where because Athletic Club were putting so much pressure on Koundé, Lamine Yamal just wasn't being the outlet and the release valve that he usually is in close proximity to Koundé. He also, positionally, there were a few diagonal balls that were coming to Koundé's side, where Athletic Club would have two on that side, and Lamine Yamal wasn't dropping deep enough because I don't think he was trusting himself to get forward quick enough then to leak out to start that counter. So he wasn't really coming back to help Koundé the way that he usually does. So I think that is reason, we'll say, 1 of 3, because reason 2 is that Lewandowski's link-up play today, just not good enough, not up to snuff, especially in that first half. I think every time that Barcelona were forced into a position with Koundé, his outlet into the middle of the field was that ball to Lewandowski or the long ball to Rafinha. And the ball to Rafinha wasn't really getting off. And Lewandowski was, again, his link-up play and his decision-making wasn't good enough. And I think that even with his link-up play, when he did wind up holding it with his back to goal, he was just too impatient, and he was trying to turn quickly. He was forcing things to Lamine Yamal. He was forcing things to Rafinha. Not the best day for Lewandowski, and some of it does carry over to the second half, but I thought Lewandowski, to find the glass half full, I thought he was much more positive in at least creating space, and I'd love for someone to put it in the comments, the actual stats here, because by the time I'm recording this, the stats aren't out yet, but I'd love to see what his touches were from the first half to the second. It felt like he touched the ball a lot less in the second half, even before he went off. And I thought that wound up being a better formula for Barcelona in the middle of the park there. Rafinha then being the third part of this, where I think Barcelona struggled in that first half, is he was playing, as I said, a bit too much Route 1 football. And I think Athletic Club, in theory, they were giving him the opportunity to do that. I don't think their defensive shape in the middle, they were starting, even though they have been really good this season, the two defensive midfielders for Athletic Club today in Prados and Zaragoza, they were getting forward a bit more. Zaragoza in particular was leaving some space for Rafinha. So Rafinha, I think, was trying to jump into that space and take on the back line just a bit too quickly, where he wasn't necessarily adding the width. And even his runs into the half space, the timing was just a bit off for Rafinha. So also wasn't, I thought, his cleanest day. And the combination of those three not being the release valves that they normally are is why Barcelona, I think, largely struggled there in that first half. To end the first half, 45+1, Szczesny with a save on Inaki Williams, which takes us into halftime, where Hansi Flick, I think, certainly had something to say to his team. Headline 3 is Flick's message sinks in. And I think for Barcelona, going into that first half, I was really giving them the what have you from that first half. They were not good. They need to be better in the second half. And whether it was the players who answered the call or Hansi Flick giving the right message, I mean, I think for Hansi Flick, tactically, he just had to say, do we have the legs to go back to what we did in the first 25 minutes? And I think Barcelona did that, coming out with the same energy for the second half they did with the first. And that is what turned this game, not even on its head, but that is what put Barcelona on the path to winning this game and taking care of business here today. 53rd minute, as I said, it was much better on the press again for Barca. Better energy as well with Lamine Yamal, in particular, with and without the ball to start the second half. So, I mean, maybe Hansi Flick just asked the 17-year-old straight up, are you fit enough to play here in the second half, or do we need to sub you off, which certainly did happen there in the 63rd minute, but they could have taken him off earlier because he didn't have the fitness, but he was ready to go for that second half. So a lot of credit to Lamine Yamal there. And that leads to the 2-0. Inigo Martinez wins it in Athletic Club's half of the field. Gavi delivers it to Lamine Yamal, who really shows that skill on the turn and finishes with time and confidence. Really sturdy from Lamine Yamal here. Interesting for Athletic Club as well. I think they're going to be frustrated if they do watch back the tape, which I don't think they will, because Lamine Yamal had just gone down thinking he got a foul. He was asking for something. Ref says no, but then, well, he seemed to be all right. It wasn't injured because he popped right back up, and then he was already in the half space, stayed on side, and then getting the ball on that turn, as I said, a lot of quality, a lot of technique, still a lot to do. Lifted the ball over Unai Simon, who's a quality goalkeeper. A lot of technique on that goal. Lamine Yamal, that is a thumbs up for you. So as hard as I was on him for his play in the first half, hey, he more than made up for it. Positive day for Lamine Yamal in the second half. Lewandowski right after that missed the potential third goal right afterwards on not necessarily a sitter, but one that he goes wide on the toe poke and got the man as well. And Unai Simon also got a piece of him, but still no excuse. Lewandowski got to put that one home. Casado, haven't mentioned individual moments for him, but the 57th minute summed up his whole day. Phenomenal tackle. He was everywhere where that back line needed him to support them throughout the day, including going from sideline to sideline. Really good stuff from Casado there. Then the 59th minute, it's a transition after the win from Pedri in the midfield. Get a lot of interceptions from Pedri and Gavi on the press that help Barcelona in that second half calm everything down and win the ball in better spots instead of having to play out of their own half of the field. If you win the ball at midfield, you can just push everything forward and control the ball, set things up, and let your high line get into position. It was a 4-on-3 when Pedri won the ball, but Balde's cross was cut out. Both men in the box were marked as well, so good job by Athletic Club for their transition D. At that point, though, kind of negative. 4 big chances were missed at that point in the game, and you felt like Barcelona should have, with how good they were playing, have already put Athletic Club on ice, but hey, we still had some twists and turns to go. Headline 4 is the Nico Williams effect. Here come the subs in the 63rd minute. Nico Williams wasn't fit to start the game, but he certainly could have unbalanced it here in the second half, joined by Oscar DeMarcos, Vesga for Athletic Club, and then Fermin Lopez joining the party for Barcelona. And I did really like this sub. As I talked about the fitness of Lamine Yamal, he definitely couldn't go even 75 today. So I thought it was really smart from Hansi Flick. It seems obvious on paper. Yeah, of course. The inner me who wrote that article for Barca Blog, which I implore you to check out. It'll be down in the show notes of the description below. But while Tony Fernandez and the article I profiled him yesterday, would have been more excited to see him. This is the right move here and the experience move. Rafinha moves over to the right to help Koundé defensively deal with Nico Williams. And Fermin heads over to the left there to play into that half space as, again, not really a left winger, but kind of just that number 10 on the press, or helping out the number 10 in Pedri and Gavi as they're kind of getting more in the middle of the field, and Fermin defending out wide as DeMarcus was looking to get forward. So this is just a really good, smart move by Hansi Flick, and sometimes the obvious move is the right one. 64th minute, right after that, though, Szczesny forced in with a save from a long shot from Vesga, because all 3 of the subs for Athletic Club were ready to play the minute they come on the field. And Koundé, he had a good game. He did pick up a yellow in the second half, and things did change for him a little bit with Nico Williams coming on. Nico Williams was getting forward a lot more on that left side than Berenger was. So Koundé was finding space and behind him to get forward more, yes, but he also had to be a bit more understanding of Nico Williams against that high line. Fortunately, I think for Koundé, Nico was dropping in to receive the ball a bit closer to midfield than he was even just trying to run onto the ball, and that might have been a fitness thing. So he kind of wanted to have the ball play to feet as opposed to running onto it, and I think that supported Koundé and allowed him kind of to stay with him more than he might not have been able to stay with him in a 1v1. It was Iñaki Williams instead, who is often the runner anyway, and Nico Williams does get on the ball aplenty, so it's not like Nico Williams was playing so much different than what he normally does, but I think because of his fitness stuff, Koundé was able to stay with him a bit more than usually what we'd expect from a Nico Williams. Balde also on the other side had a really solid game today. Yes, he picked up the assist, but Leku did nothing from that right back spot in the first half, and DeMarcos had to run him and fight for space in the second half, and Balde even jumped that offside trap twice in this game. It could have been very different if Balde did not his timing right. So I thought Balde had a really good game on both sides of the field, and anyone who criticized Balde today, forget about that. Left back is a hard position, and not many left backs in world football can be consistent like he was for 90 minutes today. So yeah, really good day for Balde. Iñaki Williams, though, missed a one-timer wide in the 72nd minute. Don't want to forget that one because that could have definitely changed the entire scope of the rest of this game. But fortunately, he misses, and that takes us to headline 5. Headline 5 is getting to the final. I say both this is tongue-in-cheek to get to the final, yes, on Sunday, but also to the final whistle here. More subs, and I think these subs were correct as well, at least on paper. 73rd minute, Lewandowski and Gavi, who would run himself ragged, off for Ferran Torres and Frankie de Jong, like-for-like replacements. In theory, de Jong able to defend in that press, kind of as that 10, the way that Gavi was. We've seen him succeed in that role this season, really the only role that de Jong has succeeded in this season. And then Torres coming on as the backup for Lewandowski, where he's done well in the last few months now. De Jong immediately gets a long run on the ball. It's stopped by a desperate Yuri Berche. And at that point, I think Athletic Club, they were digging deep, finding that last bit of energy they had. The last 15 minutes, we know they can be as mental as they are physical to close out the game here. 82nd minute, DeMarcos finds the back of the net, just barely offside. What a pass this was from Nico Williams. But as I said, good job by Balde to jump this, and DeMarcos is offside. In Barcelona, I wouldn't say at that point they dodged a bullet, but hey, they dodged a little bit of something. 83rd minute, again, Balde was gassed at that point too, as was Costado. So Hansi Flick making more substitutions based on fitness at that point. Gerard Martin and Eric Garcia coming on to close out the game. 86th minute, let's talk about it. It was the almost 2-1 De Jong with the giveaway. Yes, this was poor by De Jong, but we finally were able to vindicate him a little bit after that final replay. So this ball on what I call the De Jong giveaway goes right to Inaki Williams, who goes right in on goal past Eric Garcia and Kubarsi because he was goal side of them and finished easily. I thought because it was played back by De Jong that it should have been onside, but I guess at that point it came off an Athletic Club player to Inaki Williams. Even the slow-mo replay that they initially showed wasn't conclusive to me, but because the referee had initially called it offside, that means that they could check it on the VAR, and if it was not completely conclusive that it was offside, then it would stay offside. But fortunately, after a few minutes of arguing about it, because again, that slow-mo replay, I didn't see anything of it touching an Athletic Club player. Finally, a final replay was showed, the proper replay, that it was obviously off an Athletic Club player. So that is a good call. Does it vindicate De Jong for the giveaway fully? I don't know. But for Barcelona, it does vindicate the hard work they did on the evening to get a clean sheet, because this winds up being enough for them to get a clean sheet. De Jong had a late chance that was cleared off the line to put in the 3-0, but hey, what can you do? The 2-0 is still really good for Barcelona. I'm very happy with the performance. The man of the match was Gavi. Yes, he had the goal, and I had to name one of the midfielders. That midfield for Barcelona were just straight, flat out better than Athletic Club's midfield, and that helped them control enough of this game for, what did we say, 65 minutes of the game, which is enough, I think, to win a contest against a club like Athletic Club, who have been in really good form, and Barcelona haven't. So they dug deep, got the message from Hansi Flick. They had a lot of support from a lot of teammates who didn't even make the bench, including Ansu Fati, who knows what his future is going to be. Araujo, after all the transfer talk in the last 24 hours, also didn't see action in this game. So, hey, there's a lot of things to talk about off the field, but I might have to do like a top 5 headline or something like that, or we'll see more news coming out as the January transfer window is fully in a week plus of swing. So we'll see what happens there. But I said Gavi was the man of the match, but there were a lot of candidates here. Costado, Pedri, Balde, Koundé, Szczesny, Inigo Martinez, Kubarsi were all really solid, and Lamine Yamal had his moments and had a goal. So the fact that I'm talking about 9 of the 11 starters, this Gala 11, if you want to call it that, for Barcelona, won them this game today. And yeah, really good stuff. And if they played this well, regardless of it's Real Madrid, who I'd say have a 95% chance, it is in Saudi Arabia. So I would assume that everyone who put this tournament on would love to see El Clasico in the final on Sunday. Whether it's Real Madrid, who I give a 95% chance to, or, hey, the 5%, the underdogs, the former Copa del Rey champions 20 plus years ago in Mallorca, if they can somehow find a way. Barcelona, if they play this well again, they put themselves in a good spot to get their first trophy of the season, which I think will take a lot of pressure off Hansi Flick, and it'll take a lot of pressure off the board as well, who certainly have been under a lot of fire with the Dani Olmo situation, Pau Victor, and I said with the recent stuff about Araujo, and there's so much to speak about. If you want the whole financial breakdown, I talked about for the first 20 minutes on the watch along on Big Up, so always join me for that, because you can ask questions, you can request to be a guest, and we can have a lot more in-depth conversations over there than I can have on these 5 headlines. But I'll also consider doing some kind of news wrap-up, because we've had a ton of news this week, including what I want to talk about with Tony Fernandez as well, being the 4th youngest debut for Barcelona against Barbastro over the weekend. So yeah, a lot of news and a lot of good stuff happening in Barcelona world at the moment. So again, I will talk to everybody definitely on Sunday, maybe beforehand. We'll have to see what my schedule looks like. But until then, as always, Forza Barca.